Yo, what's up, guys? Thanks so much for tuning in. Today is a treat for you if you're looking to find more time and leverage in your business while still being effective and having an impact on what you're trying to accomplish. And that really defines almost every entrepreneur that I know, trying to find more time, create more leverage, having more assets working in the business so that you can spend your time focused on what is most important to you and where you're most valuable to the business. And today we're talking about marketing automation and more automation, how it relates to marketing, sales, and even customer service and support, and generating reviews and referrals. So let me give you a story real quick to just illustrate how this, what your life looks like when you have something like this in place. So a while back, I'll tell you a story that's already been completed so that you could see what the outcome was. A while back, I was out to lunch, not doing any prospecting, anything like that. I was just eating lunch. I get back home, and in my inbox, I have an appointment that's been scheduled for me for next week. And I have no idea who this person is. I've never heard of them before. Their name's not familiar. I don't know, no mutual connections on LinkedIn or anything like that. So a complete stranger has booked a call with me, and we have that call, and it's about 45 minutes long. And they end up hiring me and my agency, Tresnick Media, for a social media engagement that lasted, for 12 months at $3,000 a month. So about $36,000, a little more in the end, in revenue for the business based on a 45-minute conversation I had with a complete stranger. So how does something like that happen? Well, because while I didn't know them, they were familiar with me intimately enough that they were comfortable signing up and for our services for a 12-month agreement. Now, the way that happened was completely automated, and the system that we have in place is using SEO, which in a previous episode we talked about creating visibility for the business. So I wrote a blog post that talked about social media marketing and how to hire a social media marketing agency. That blog post was ranking at the top of Google for a bunch of different phrases related to social media marketing agencies. So this person searched Google looking for social media marketing tips, found my blog post, read it, liked it enough that at the bottom there was a sign up box to learn more about social media marketing for your business. They signed up. They were automatically sent an email that came from me personally, from my personal email address, that sent them some educational stuff on hiring a social media marketing agency, a couple more emails that followed up with that, positioning me as the expert and, showing them the benefits of the services, and then asking them ultimately for a time to talk on the phone. And that linked over to a tool that we use that looks into my calendar, finds an open time, and then, they can book the time right there. So all this happened automatically. All the pre-sales, all the nurturing, all the prospecting, relationship building, all happened basically in the background automatically while I was out having lunch. And then when we have our sales call, they've already been pre-framed and set up to really be likely to say yes. And so this is the system that we want to put in place for your business. These are the type of habits that you should be getting into, creating these type of, assets that when you put them out into the world, they force the serendipity of people finding you, really liking you, knowing you, trusting you, and then setting them up to want to hire you or buy from you depending on what kind of business you have. So in today's episode, I brought on Nick Berry from RocketReferrals and Hustle Condition, who is what we call him the human follow-up machine, and he is just incredible at leveraging technology and automation to really build relationships, follow up, and create sales opportunities for people. So without further ado, I'm Todd. Welcome to the Growth Suite, and here is my conversation with Nick. All right, Nick, welcome to Growth Suite TV. Can you give a little introduction about who you are, what your magic powers are here, and a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm Nick Berry. I'm the coordinator here at RocketReferrals. We're a SaaS company. My background really is I've been in sales pretty much since 2002 when I left the military, and really dug into automation and marketing automation and sales automation in the last several years. Just got real hard and heavy into it, and just really loving that and helping my sales team make their life easier.
Yeah, and that's that's a big thing that I preach about is getting the systems and habits in place that make things easier. There might be a little learning curve up front, but then like the benefits that you get ongoing is just tremendous value for yourself as a person or as your business. So that's where today's topic of automation, particularly marketing automation, we'll touch on some sales automation stuff. That really comes into play for helping people do more with less. And so before we even dive into what the definition is, can you kind of paint a picture of like when you have a successful automation process in place for your sales and marketing team, like what does that look like for a business's day-to-day life, and how does it make their life easier?
Right. So right now, how things work is when my team, and I'll just talk about how I set things up for my team.
Yeah.
It's really simple. They have a demo or they have a follow-up activity or something scheduled. Once that's completed, my automation will, depending on what happened, will trigger other activities to happen. When I first started the company, we had almost no automations built, and my salespeople would, after I got things, just the basic stuff set up, they would literally come to me and say, "My calendar's full now," and I'd look at them and be like, "Yeah, that's kind of my job." Isn't that what you want? I mean, don't you want a full calendar of qualified leads, of people who've raised their hand and said, yes, I want to learn more. So that's really what it was. And it was really basic stuff.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It's stuff that happens in the background automatically, and then your calendar's filled with leads, right? If for in your organization, that's the objective for the sales guys, getting their calendar full with qualified leads. So
yeah.
That's what we got going on as a truck drives by. So hopefully that's not too loud on the mic. So now let's talk about like what exactly is marketing automation, and like how do you define it? How do you see it?
So marketing automation are really it's management and administration of tasks that don't need to be extremely personalized, and it can be handwritten cards, automating. It can be our thing. It can be automating emails based on smart send. Figuring out when the best time to send an email is. Sending texts. All these things are readily available through really easy automation tools that any business can get set up for a couple $100 a month.
Yeah, it's great, and I like that. You talked about the cards too, because now I know people are going to think. The first thing that everybody thinks with marketing automation, if they're familiar with it, is email automation. Like you're talking about handwritten cards, like that's pretty wild, right? So it's really just taking about anything that's done in a process and systematic way, right? And creating a system that makes it happen. So I like that use of it's not just emails, but I think emails are probably the quickest win for any business to get in place, right? So let's talk about we have our definition here, automating tasks that don't have to be 100% personalized. But I think with the right system, you can even, take the personalization a little further than just basic, right? Like, people think of personalization first as just a name, right? Like, hi, Nick, right? And that's obviously super dependent on what people are putting into the forms, which some guys like to jerk around and goof off, like I know you do. But I think it's even about segmenting interests and topics, right? So if we look at, I look at one of the first things that somebody should set up is having a lead capture form on your website, and then having that follow-up, just a 3 or 5 part follow-up sequence automatically go out, right? So a new lead comes in from your website, you don't have to have somebody standing on call waiting to be dialing these people and filtering them out. So getting that, let's deliver what that lead requested, and then let's follow up and educate them a little bit and create the sales opportunity, and that's where they end up booked in the calendar. Now, the personalization side of things can even be if they sign up for a specific lead magnet, like if they sign up for a webinar on how to get more referrals, well, you can personalize their follow-up. You can put them into an automated sequence that's based on them being interested in referrals. But if it's something where they're interested in saving time on handwriting all their thank you notes, then they can go through something different. So that personalization can come from different ways and different segmentations like that based on how they kind of opted into your business, right?
Oh yeah, that's diving deep. Where I think a lot of that's the stuff that I'm really getting into right now is how did this person get into our system, and how can I move them, and what brought them here and what do I need to do to get them on the call.
Yeah. So if a business owner's watching this and they're thinking, all right, this sounds great, like I'd love to be able to create more leverage in the business, right? That's what a system like this does, because if you're spending 2 hours a day sending emails and writing thank you notes, or going through your calendar trying to coordinate scheduling times and stuff, if you're able to automate all that stuff, you just save 2 hours out of your day. So you're creating that leverage in your business. So what are a few of the first kind of automated sequences or automated systems that you recommend a new person to automation to look at to implementing for their business?
Making sure that your website is capturing the right data, name, email address, where they're at, what site, what page they came into. And then making sure you have a basic CRM in place. You can start out free with HubSpot. HubSpot's CRM is pretty decent. Getting data, they try to keep you in the system as much as possible, so they make it a little more difficult. But I'm a huge fanboy of Pipedrive.
And for those of you guys watching, Nick is, he's very humble when he introduces himself, but he's like a top 1% Pipedrive user in the world. And the Pipedrive team actually consults with Nick on how to improve their product pretty regularly. So he's a monster when it comes to this stuff. So
yeah. So, Pipedrive, especially for smaller teams, is relatively inexpensive, $20 a month for their gold plan per user, which for the stuff that they have available on the gold plan, especially the workflow automations, which you can dig into, or I help people with all the time. And then, throw Zapier in there to pull everything and move things around. And then my favorite outreach system right now is Mailshake. Really good personalization, and the way you can do it. I'm doing putting people's names into stories. I kind of stole that from you.
Yeah.
Into the personalization, not just and filtering out, modifying dates and putting different dates and replies and stuff like that. Getting into the personalization stuff, that's the big thing. Those handful of tools is really where it starts. A good solid base of your website forms. I recommend Gravity Forms. It's my favorite one. Zapier to push things along, and then a good CRM, Pipedrive, HubSpot, whatever your flavor is. Most of them will integrate with other tools, and then sometimes it's how you set up your activities in your CRM to your outreach or follow-up email management.
Yeah. So we kind of jumped ahead a little bit into the tools there, but let's talk about the different sequences people should think about, right? So you talked about the form on the website, so that's capturing your lead. So let's talk. You should have your immediate lead follow up with someone who fills out a form on your website for something, right? So that's one thing. What are a couple other automated sequences they should look at?
Really simple follow up for those people from the time they've said, hey, filled out the form, and our sequence is really simple. We don't do lead capture we don't do lead magnets.
You're right.
We don't have a book or anything like that. We, try to do education and then ask them to book a demo. So our sequence is they sign up to book a demo. They get a quick email from that. I'm updating that this week. We're actually going to start asking questions, and hopefully they'll respond. 30 to 40% should respond to those 3 or 4 questions. And then scheduling that demo. Now, once the demo happens or doesn't happen, 2 things happen. If the demo happens, the salesperson follows up, their follow-up, and then after, if the salesperson identifies, you get in the...
Yeah, it's all good. They know you're stealing too much time out of the system is what they're coming after you is what happened.
So they're...
and we can also, before you go further, just to touch, depending on the business, right? You guys book a demo, but that could just be any kind of sales qualifying call or any kind of product presentation. Yeah.
So that time, that customer picks a time to talk to your salesperson. If they show up, the salesperson does their follow up. That they identify if this is a good lead, if this is somebody who's ready to buy now, or if this is somebody who we need to follow up with later. So we have sequences for each series.
Yeah.
That sequence, if they show up and they're a qualified lead, it's super simple. It's just touch and base every week with basic educational stuff that will help their business that may even not be related to our business.
Yeah.
And then, I don't even have 3 of my emails don't even have a call to action in them besides going to read a blog post or going to read an article.
Yeah. And it's about being the resource for their business and positioning yourself as the expert, building that relationship, and this is all happening in the background on autopilot, right? So it's not like somebody's got to be spending hours and hours every day trying to keep up with all this communication.
No. And even when I first started Rocket Referrals, I was like, we don't even have templates for our sales side. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's going to get fixed.
Yeah. So now let's talk about that. We touched on some tools before, but let's first let's determine, how do you look at marketing automation versus sales automation? Because I know you touched on a couple tools that are sales tools versus marketing tools, and how do they kind of play together?
So the big marketing automations, it depends on where the person is in the stage of your process, is how I look at it. I mean, I'm a salesperson by heart, but I'm kind of ended up in the marketing side of the business to make sure that we're helping our sales team. So the marketing automation tools are same thing, getting people into a funnel, if they're not ready to buy right now, you have to stay in front of them to get there. So offering educational options for them to stay in front of them. Same like I'm getting ready to push. We just pushed our first test ad for this webinar we're doing. No ask from us. The webinar will not contain an ask from us. Mm-hmm. It's 100% value. They show up. They even get a book. Like, I'm going to mail them a book from the office.
A physical copy of a book.
Physical hardcover copy. No ask. Well, there will be an ask. There will be a little sticky note in the book. But I mean,
Yeah, you earned that sticky note.
Yeah. So otherwise, that's my version of marketing automation, getting people to through that funnel and getting them in and getting them on the webinar. And that's my take on it.
And who do those emails come from in your organization? So, they sign up for a demo, they're not requesting to speak to someone specific. So when they receive an email, who's the email address or the name that it's coming from?
So when it starts out, when they request the demo, it's going to come from the salesperson that the calendar system is round robin them to.
Okay.
So we use Calendly for our calendar management. And a round robin's based on priority. I've got the lowest priority because I shouldn't be on the calendar that much. No matter the salespeople are the highest priority. So we get round robin through those calendars. And then if they miss their demo or they end up in a follow-up or a marketing campaign, they come from me because I'm the coordinator. I'm the sales and marketing coordinator.
But they're not coming from, info at Rocket Referrals or...
Any communication you send to anybody should be from a person. Yeah. The minute you start sending it from a generic info, sales, marketing, I
was going to say, do not reply at...
a person. Even, we've done this before, even if the person doesn't really exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, the name in the email block is the important thing, not your company name. Email shouldn't be the place where you're branding.
Right. And the thing is, when people are looking on their phone or in their inbox on their desktop, if they're scrolling through their inbox and they see a company name that doesn't call their attention, they know it's something that they can ignore because it's not a person who's reaching out to them that's going to, be let down if they don't read it or reply. But as soon as you put someone's name there, there's much more of an affinity there to a person who they need to see what they're saying and potentially reply to.
Yeah, 100%. And that's even with our software we do. We tell people all the time, stop sending emails from your agency.
Yeah.
Send it from a person. Send it, even if it's one person, even if all the communications are from one person, send it from a person.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, marketing automation we talk about on the marketing side is kind of a more, let's call it, mass communication system that can communicate with everybody else. Now, you talked about HubSpot and the CRM side of things and Mailshake. So the sales automation, so I look at, by the way we've had this conversation here, I look at marketing automation as the way the company can create personalized follow-up and communicate with people efficiently and effectively. And then when we talk about sales automation, this is a way for individual sales reps and employees to really create leverage in their role and focus on more important things, right? So talk about a little bit about the sales automation and what happens in sales automation stuff.
So sales automation, one thing that I've learned in my almost 20 years of sales experience, if it's not automated, a salesperson's probably not going to do it. So in reality, the salesperson is not going to, they don't have, a good salesperson doesn't have time to do the minutia, to do the follow-up emails, to do the follow-up texts and the cards and stuff like that. All that stuff is, my goal is for my salespeople to literally from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock be their calendar just full of demos. So if that means that part of my job is being done, I have to enable their job to be easier to automate the minutia, the follow-ups and stuff like that. So that's really, same thing, setting up workflow automations to when a demo is completed to move them to the next stage based on whatever note they put in.
Mm-hmm. And so that kind of stuff happens in a different type of tool, like we said, and so that's in a HubSpot CRM or in your Pipedrive or Mailshake, and so the way it works for people who get started is you set up a system so that after you get off your sales call, you put in the proper notes and tag them as successful, unsuccessful, needs this type of follow-up, whatever it is, and then that will trigger an automatic follow-up sequence that goes out. And now your sales guy doesn't have to come in every morning and look through, okay, now I got to send 27 emails today to catch up with these people who didn't finish their successful demo and blah blah blah. All that stuff happens automatically in the background.
Yep.
Yeah,
mine's
great.
And I've mapped out my current workflow automation, and it's like even my brain goes, what?
And so then, let's talk about all this kind of stuff happens, magically in the background. So then where does a pro sales rep or a pro marketer, now where do they get to focus their time that they've created this? Like, what's left of the job here when all that stuff is happening? That's
when they're doing they're selling. They're getting in front of those people who've raised their hand and said, I want to talk to you. I want to sign up. I need your help to get me to the next stage. So the people who are ready to buy are available to you.
Yeah. And so, the sales guys, sales gals, they get to focus their time on having the valuable conversations that can actually bring dollars into the business rather than quote unquote, wasting their time on all that other stuff, which salespeople hate doing, and then it doesn't get done. But as we know, you got to dig your well before you're thirsty. And if you're not planting and harvesting those seeds along the pipeline, then there's nobody to have conversations with to bring dollars in anyway. So, it's a great, efficient, and effective way to put something in place to make sure your business is in the best position for success and that everybody gets to work on things that are actually their job, right? Everybody in the world, regardless if you're, a teacher, a nurse, a marketer, or a plumber, nobody wants to do the admin side of things or even what they perceive as the admin side of things, right? So being able to put systems in place to automate that so that, it's also psychological. It keeps everybody happier because they're doing what they're happy with.
Yes.
I think that.
100%. Yeah. I when I came into the company, Pipedrive, I was excited because they had the tools that I love already in place. Yeah. And then I got into the data. And one of the things when you're as a business owner or a stakeholder or somebody that's responsible for looking and see how things are working, if your salespeople aren't doing these activities, you can't figure out what their efficiency is or what their effectiveness is. Yeah. If you don't know what your close ratio is because nobody's completed an activity in 7 months,
right? Yeah.
How do you know what your close ratio is?
Right. So and putting all those numbers in place and everything that we do is based on a few stages: awareness, engagement, subscription, conversion, and sale, depending on what kind of business you have, if those are two separate things. And if you don't have a system in place at each one of those steps, you don't know where there's a drop off or where to improve. Yep. So people look and they say, all right, well, we're not getting enough sales, so our sales guys need to do a better job. Well, the sales guys might not be getting enough phone calls that are worth their time. And so then you have to take a step back and say, all right, are we getting enough leads that aren't turning into calls? Then that's where you fix something. But, having the stages and the system in place, so that you can just very clearly see at a top level, here's where the drop-off is and here's where we need to improve it.
Yep. Yeah. If I couldn't see what my salespeople's close ratios were, where we were losing people in the stage, how long it was taking to complete a deal, if I didn't have those statistics, I couldn't improve anything.
Yeah.
If I didn't know it, our average time to close is 17 days.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't say we need to make sure we're getting in front of these people before 17 days is up.
Right. Absolutely. And that's a great point. And I think I would bet most businesses out there don't know how many days it takes for somebody to close or what the percentages are or anything like that. And just, whether you're using automation or not, just, put on a whiteboard, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and just count, do that for a month to just see where things are at. So like you said, you know how to make your team more efficient and effective. That's great. So, a couple things we talked about here to tie them in is we want to have an automated follow-up for people who become when they become a lead through the website. They fill out some kind of form on the website. We want to follow up and nurture them and set them up to have a demo or a sales call or present an offer of some kind.
Yep.
Then, based on that phone call, we want to have follow-up to make sure that it turns into an actual deal closed. And if not, then we want to put them into a long-term nurture strategy so that we can continue to bring them in because, take this with a grain of salt, but the number's so low, it gets the point across. But, at any given time, only 3% of a market is actually in buy mode, right? So even if that number's off by, triple, that's still less than 10% of a market is in buy mode. So it's extremely low. So to be able to have that long-term nurturing sequence automated is a huge deal for businesses because now you're not losing opportunities just because your timing was off when you communicated with them. And, the other ones that I look at are, all right, so now they become a new customer. Now, you got to onboard. You have to have, some kind of customer success, and of course, talk into how that happens, and then how you guys make that efficient and the benefits of the customer onboarding.
All right. So when a new customer comes into us, we actually have a process now where when the salesperson says, "Okay, we're going to unlock this account," they literally raise their hand, and the intro person for the day jumps on their call. Mm-hmm. So we introduce the customer to their new account manager.
Yep.
So they know who they're going to work with. And then we have a dedicated process, step by step, of what's going to happen, what days, and the account manager makes sure that the next call is scheduled before that call they're on right now is over.
Yep.
And we have reports set. This report's going to get run and built and sent to the scheduled with the customer to go over their stuff. And we have a customer journey that's 37 months long right now.
Wow. And that's the thing. People look at automation as marketing automation and sales automation, and they forget that once you get the sale, that's when the work begins, right? And so making sure that your customers are happy and loyal, and then happy and loyal customers turn into brand advocates, right? And that's where Rocket Referrals really helps their clients. So why don't you talk about, that piece of the automation? So now you have your successful customers. How do you turn those customers into the brand advocates? How do you get referrals and reviews and all that kind of stuff that you should be working towards once you get a customer?
Yep. So the referral, a lot of people say, well, when do I get referrals? I said, referrals happen when you're not around.
Right.
So you have to make sure that relationship between you and that person is top of mind. So if you're an insurance agent, when you're looking and you want to sell more business, the worst time to try and sell more business to someone is 6 months after you sold them last time. The best time is when you started the relationship and getting them in the mindset. So even if they buy an auto policy with you, when you start, you should be sending a welcome package, a welcome email, a welcome card. How it works with Rocket Referrals, we see a new customer, they get a welcome email, a welcome card, and they get an NPS survey scheduled to be delivered right after that.
What's an NPS survey for people who don't know?
So the Net Promoter Score is a customer loyalty survey. So everybody, eBay uses it, Amazon, Netflix.
Yeah.
Every major.
If you don't know the word, you've definitely seen them and taken them before. It's it's the 1 to 10. How likely are you to tell somebody about us? The question may be a little different than that, but that's essentially what it is.
Yeah. How likely are you to recommend our insurance agency to a friend or colleague? 0 through 10, and then so you're going to identify the holes in your processes with your customers. You're going to find those customers who love your agency, and we're going to ask them for a testimonial, and then that testimonial happens. Once that testimonial is gathered and that person scored you a 9 or a 10, we'll ask them for a review on Google or Facebook. So we're creating a referral mindset by communicating with them on the important times. Handwritten birthday cards, handwritten thank you cards for referrals. If you're tracking that information, we even have a loyalty card for the top 10% of a company's business that get a handwritten loyalty card, and it's basically a glorified thank you card. Thank you for being my customer for 8 years, etc.
Right.
Or thank you for trusting us for 8 years, or whatever it is. different templates and all this other stuff. So it's building a referral mindset. So when their neighbor says, I just had a terrible claims experience with that roof replacement last month, and goes, you know what, you should call my guy Zach. He always takes care of me.
Yeah.
So, and that's when those referrals happen, and that's when And the other thing is, so those Facebook and Google reviews, those are referrals too. Mm-hmm. They've given you a referral that's going to sit on Google or Facebook for the eternity of the internet.
Yep, absolutely. And that's, social media is today's word of mouth. So for companies who say, well, we just, most of our new business is word of mouth. Well, word of mouth is on the internet and on social media today. So if you're not driving people to the digital version of word of mouth today, eventually that's going to run out.
Yep. Well, and the other, even if it really is honestly word of mouth, person to person, if you give me a referral, just anything, I'm going to Google it.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
And if your Google reviews don't show positive customer service experiences, people aren't going to call. They're not going to pick up the phone. They're not going to fill out the form.
Yeah. And the problem is that, and I see this with a lot of companies, is that they don't ask for the reviews, and so they don't have a lot of reviews. And who are the people who leave reviews when you don't ask anyone? It's the negative people, right? And so now you've been in business for 27 years. You have thousands of happy customers that are, proud to work with you and would, happily, tout your service. But 3 people have left reviews on your Facebook page, and they're all negative because you never asked for somebody to leave something positive. So now, I tell my buddy, you got to look up so-and-so to do that. And when they Google you and they see this company only has 3 reviews and they're all negative, what was Todd talking about? Yep. So you want to proactively be doing that.
Right. And that's the thing. Like most companies, they do have great customers. They have a gold mine of business that loves them. But they don't know how to easily get people to do these things. Yeah. So without those processes in place on automation, they just don't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and
you don't have to worry about things slipping through the cracks. And for the people who do, I don't know what number you put the border on, but if it's a 7 or less, then you can follow up and find out, hey, how could we make this experience better?
Yep. That's exactly. And we tell people, you get an 8 or less, pick up the phone within 48 hours and call that person. Yeah. If they left a feedback comment, that's great. If not, just call them and say, hey, is there anything I can do to make your experience with our agency better?
Yeah.
That simple question lowers their guard, and they're going to say, oh yeah, nobody ever calls me, or the only time you call me is when you want to sell me more stuff. The only time I get an email or phone call from you. You don't even respond to my emails. And then, and that's the majority of what most companies really struggle with. It's usually not price. It's usually not anything but lack of communication, proactive communication.
Right. And proactive, preemptive communication, ongoing, it's all about relationships before the sale, after the sale. It's all about the relationship. And you don't want to have to be in a situation where you need to ask of something when you haven't spoken to them in a long time, or you haven't given them value in a long time. And so that's the importance of, making sure that there's just constant communication with somebody, because, you don't want to have to say, hey, I know we haven't spoken in about 18 months, but could you leave a positive review? Right. Because we just got a negative one that we need to combat, right?
Yeah. Now I just got 3 negative reviews.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So, for businesses getting started, they should be looking at a handful of different automations. Let's say it's from, it's a new lead to nurture them and create a sales opportunity. It's a sales call follow-up to make sure that, nothing slips through the cracks and they can create something. It's new customer onboarding so that you can get them in the best position for success with your product or service. And then we want to have, once they are successful and happy, we want to, trigger those reviews that, ask them for reviews or referrals based on them being satisfied with the product or service. And then one other one we didn't touch on, but I like to throw out there too, is also the re-engagement. So we talked about if somebody doesn't buy right away and it's just, it just doesn't work out right now, but we have them in a long-term nurture, so they're getting a weekly email like you mentioned. But if they haven't been opening emails, all of a sudden, you can have a growing email list with just your open rate is just dropping. And this is something you talk about all the time. And it's because you have people who have now become, it could be for a lot of reasons. Maybe it's ending up in their spam, or it's not even getting delivered, or their email address changed, or they've just gotten blindness to your emails because they know it's the same thing over and over again. I think that's a good point. I think mine is set at 30 days. I don't know if you do earlier or sooner, but if someone reaches the 30-day mark and they didn't open an email, that triggers another automation that re-engages them, and it sends out and says, hey, is this still your email address? Or, hey, are you still interested in this? If not, no problem. Click here to unsubscribe, right?
Yeah. So mine's actually, because I know that time, how long I have to close a deal.
Yeah.
It's at 15 days.
Yeah.
If they have not replied or opened to an email, they get a special, and I've shared that template with you. They get a special email that I have insane response rates to. And it re-engages people and gets them on the calendar, and they reply and say, leave me alone.
Right.
Either way, I'm a person, I want them to know as fast as possible.
Yep.
I want them to say no to my face or my email box as fast as possible.
Yep.
So that's why I do it that way.
Yeah.
And then, another thing, a lot of times people will say, well, follow up with me in 3 months. Don't follow up with them in 3 months. Follow up with them in 2 months.
Yeah.
Get in front of them before that time come available.
Yeah.
I told that to a salesperson the other day. They're like, I didn't think about that. I'm like, well, when they tell you 3 months, that means they're not going to be looking for 3 months. Well, why not be in front of them before that?
Right. Or even, to just touch base a couple times ahead of that 3 months, so that, again, it hasn't been 3 months. We have our relationship hasn't furthered. It's actually, our relationship has decayed because we haven't had any interaction. And so now, they're not any more likely today than they were then to want to do business with me versus a competitor. So, touching base, building that relationship throughout, so that when it's time that, that buying window becomes open for them, you've built a stronger relationship than you had the first time.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Nick. I think there's, a lot of things for people to take out of this, even if it's just knowing what's possible, and then, being able to hire, either do it themselves with, if you're looking for free marketing automation, MailChimp is a simple way to do it. ActiveCampaign is low cost. That's what we use. There's higher ticket stuff like Infusionsoft or HubSpot. And then there's Mailshake and some other sales automation tools for people to check out. But really, effective and efficient, and the systems and habits that make your business, just, more valuable and give you more time to do what you want to focus on. So look into this stuff, and if they do want to get an automation system up in place for getting those handwritten notes and their referrals in place, where can they find you?
Yeah, so RocketReferrals.com is the place to get that set up and sign up for a demo. We will show anybody. I just signed up a software company that teaches insurance professional, does the CE, the continuing ed, for insurance companies. So, anybody, like any business. I've had screen printing companies. I had a car dealership using us. Yeah. They were terrible NPS, but.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Nick, very much. RocketReferrals.com. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you later.
All right, man.
All right, thank you, Nick, so much for joining us. Please go check him out at RocketReferrals.com and see what they have going on. But let's just recap what you should be doing now as your action items. At the very least, this is what you should look at implementing for your business. An automated sequence that follows up with new leads from your website. So someone fills out a form on your website, you want to have an automated sequence that can send them a message right away, welcome them, indoctrinate them, introduce them to your brand. I like to send some educational stuff over a course of a few days, and then ask them to have a sales call or drive them to a product page. The next thing you want to have is a sales follow-up sequence. So depending on what kind of business you have, after a product has been presented to them, you want to have a follow-up sequence so that nobody slips through the cracks and you don't lose out on any opportunities. And the third thing that you want to have is a new customer welcoming sequence, right? So that they get, really familiar with your brand, and there becomes a loyalty and strong relationship, and you put them in the best position for success, educating them how to use your product or service and making sure they get the most out of it. So then they are very likely to refer and review your business, leave positive reviews. So making sure all that stuff is set up. So a welcome and new lead follow-up sequence, a sales follow-up, and a new customer onboarding sequence. That's what we recommend to get started with at the very least, and a free tool like MailChimp can even help you do that, so you can check them out as well as all the advanced stuff that we talked about in the show. And if you want to plan this out or see how you can really turn your business into a modern sales and marketing machine, go to thegrowthsuite.com/subscribe, and there's a couple free resources for you to download there, like the Modern Business Blueprint and the Marketing Strategy Guide. So download both of those. That'll help you get started right away with understanding these concepts for your business and even planning them out with some simple one-page worksheets. So check that out at thegrowthsuite.com/subscribe. As always, I'm Todd, and leave a comment or shoot me a message with any questions, Todd at thegrowthsuite.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.